Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
And I'm Maureen. So today we're going to be talking about Dr. Arikana and the message she had for Africans about Israel.
Yeah, so you might ask yourself, for those who don't know, who is Dr. Arikana Chihombori? She is a Zimbabwean and she's also a public speaker, an activist, and also an educator. She had some things to tell Africans about Israel, and let's listen to the video first and then we'll come back and discuss.
Allow me to share with you briefly that in 1945, 13 Jewish men met in the library. They didn't even have a place to meet. This was soon after Holocaust. The ideas they came up with during that meeting were based on two facts, two realizations: that there was a need for them to unite, for them to speak with one voice when it comes to issues pertaining to them and their country. They also realized that their unity was useless if they did not back it up with financial resources. So that is all they did. They united. They said, we may not like each other as individuals, but when it comes to their Jewishness, when it comes to Israel, they stick together like superglue. They also pulled out their financial resources. If I may stop for a second, use Israel as an example and the Jewish people. The Jewish people own this little bitty tiny little piece of land, which is a desert. There's only 15 million Jews around the world. Compared to Africa, we have the largest landmass on earth, richest continent on earth, and over 400 million African diaspora. The Jews, their little bitty country that is a desert, financially, they control the world, whether you like it or not. When those Americans in Charlottesville were holding their tiki torches, talking about the Jews will not replace us, you never saw a single Jewish man on television complaining. They complain with their finances. Their dollars speak for them. Jews do not go and borrow money from anybody. They fund themselves. They're probably the most powerful people financially. Their money speaks for them. What do we do instead when George Floyd gets killed and many others? We're on the street, we make noise, and that's it. If everybody that protested could put $1 and say, yes, we want to protest, but we're also going to do something about it, now we could get somewhere. We could get somewhere. Translate those voices into finances. Let's make that bridge. Let's create that bridge. Let's take a page from the Jews. Let's understand that as Black people, we are the most endangered species on earth. Let's also make a commitment that how long are we going to allow this carnage to go on? How long are we going to continue to be stupid? It's about the finances, my brothers and sisters. If we do not bring our finances together, if we do not understand that my $85 a month for a year is an investment in not only myself, but my children, my grandchildren, and generations to come, then who are we? What is the solution? Understand that the brain drain out of Africa started over 400 years ago with the children of Africa who were being taken out of Africa as slaves. Remember, when they were choosing which Africans to take out as slaves, they chose the fittest, the smartest, that who they felt would sustain and survive the rigorous journey across the Atlantic, followed by those who have left Africa in recent years in search of greener pastures, some running away from famine and wars. But the end result is Africans around the world are building other nations while we are allowing our beloved continent to languish or be exploited. The colonizers have been in Africa for centuries. All they have succeeded at doing is building infrastructure designed to do nothing but extract resources out of Africa. That's all they have done, and that's all they plan to continue to do. We're the only ones who can change that paradigm. And that means the African diaspora must wake up. That means the African diaspora must understand what is really going on and not understand Africa from the eyes of the colonizers, from the eyes of the media that have chosen to paint Africa as a diseased and dying continent in need of rescue. Let's understand our Africa as African diaspora. Let's understand our role. It's very difficult for African businessmen in Malawi, in Botswana, to think continental. They're struggling to make a living in that little bitty country with all the restrictions and the difficulties of reaching to the country next door, to then ask that same businessman to think continental. But the people who can help with that bridge, the people who are already integrated in a way, people who can come to Africa with an integrated mind, are the children of Africa in the diaspora. Like I said before, $1 million diaspora with $1,000, that's $1 billion. $1 billion is a lot of money. And then you take that 1 billion, let's do it a year in and year out. Financial resources, we need to pull our funds together. We need to begin to look at our continent as a continent. What do the market women in Africa need today? How do we begin to make it possible for a market woman in Nigeria to sell to the market woman in Kenya what she cannot find in Kenya, but it's in Nigeria? How do we begin to loosen those trade barriers? It's a level one. I'm hoping that the African Continental Free Trade Area can begin to address those issues. But looking at what we have right now, when you see countries still blocking borders, still making it difficult for Africans to travel freely around the continent, all of our challenges, if you begin to understand them, they all go back to the mind. We must open up our Africa. We need a single African currency. It's just that simple.
Wow, so Dr. Arikana's speech goes on and on, but basically what she is emphasizing in this clip, and Maren, I think we can concur with her, is that Africans, especially Africans in diaspora, but all Africans, we must come together to make the continent great again. She says the reason why Israel is ahead and the reason why Israel low-key controls the economy of the world is because financially they have the muscle to move. And Africa, we don't have the muscle to move. You know, we first need to find out how to be united, and then we can not only be united but make sure there is finance to back our unity.
Just the other day we had Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, talk about their cows, and he was talking about how much milk their cows produce, and they're really proud about where they're getting their money. And Dr. Arikana has stretched on a very important point. When Africans in diaspora, brain drain in Africa began a long time ago. You find that the best, smartest people from Africa are taken to go and build other nations.
And when they get there, they don't remember that they also need to invest back in Africa. Instead, they build those other nations and forget where they are coming from. And she, in her own words, says this is because of colonial mindset. Yeah, this is because of colonial mindset. And the people who are going abroad, they tend to forget that Africa also needs their help in order for Africa to be great.
Right. Visitors can only be able to come into Africa offering free goodies, you know, because those ones who've left Africa, they left, never looked back to look at the good things they're leaving behind. They're going to build other nations. When those other nations come as friends, they build infrastructures not to benefit the people in those nations, but
majority to benefit themselves.
Yeah, these structures are built in order to take good things out of Africa. Things, talk of raw materials, talk of minerals, you know. So Dr. Arikana in essence is saying, Africans, you need to come together and you need to wake up. You need to know, you need to look at what things that are happening. Jewish people, they, you know, when you look at the history of Israel and the Jewish people, they didn't have land, as Dr. Arikana has said. They did not have land. What did they have instead?
Money. And even now, where they're sitting at, their land is majority in a hot place, and it's desert-like, but yet they're surviving out there. Why? Because of the financial muscle they created for themselves. You know, there's something that someone always says: when you have money, you have the power. Exactly.
So like Africa, also another thing, I think like other countries, there are countries that are really trying, but Africa, we still have a long way to go, because if you look at Africa, we are the only continent. Look at America and look at Africa, for instance. Africa has a lot of trade barriers, and a good question Arikana asked: how can a woman in Nigeria sell products in Kenya without that, you know, those stringent barriers that are put into place to make sure that, because these barriers are only limiting us and they're bringing us behind. If there was one Africa that you could communicate in one African currency, things would be a lot much easier. Goods would move freely. Africa would really develop, you know. So you like, just the other day, I think yesterday or the day before that, there was a content creator. This content creator was denied entry in, was it Zambia or Zimbabwe?
One of the two countries, I'm not sure. Yeah.
He posted a picture of himself. He was denied entry because of visa. So he posted a picture of himself sleeping at the border. Can you imagine that? That is still the Africa we are dealing with. So Africans, we need to stop that colonial mindset of closing our barriers and borders to
each other. Yet you are open to foreigners like the Europeans.
Right now, it's very difficult for an African to travel from one African country to the other, and it's very expensive on an African compared to a foreigner who comes into Africa. Why is that? We need to change these mindsets, all right? So Dr. Arikana is exposing the secrets of Israel. One thing they do have that Africans don't have is that unity, and that unity is going to be, if we don't work on it, it's going to be the doom of African countries. Another thing she exposes, like, Israelites, Jews, they really they can think, you understand? Why are they so organized when it comes to their financial? Why can they be able to, you know, move into nations and say we want this and this in exchange, you know, moving with, you know, friendship deals, you know, because they have money and power to sit down and think. And in essence, Arikana is saying Africa can have that too if you work on certain things.
And the biggest takeaway for me is when she said the children in the diaspora. This she meant Africans in the diaspora. When you go to diaspora, any diasporan country, please don't forget the country, the continent of Africa, because the citizens of different countries of Africa that you've left here, they still have the mindset of a country. They don't have the mindset of
one Africa.
Not only one Africa, but they don't have the bigger picture as diasporans who are outside of Africa. They've been integrated with different people, different technologies, different, you know, in short, an African coming from abroad can be able to afford certain things that a local African can't, you know. So in terms of business, they're the ones who can get Africa to a greater height, because and they're the ones who can come back and teach the Africans who are left in Africa how to think big and beyond Africa, not only just thinking like a countryman, you know.
Yeah, before we go, guys, I just want you to think and reflect on one thing. You know, picture this: a person who you live with your neighbor, but you don't treat your neighbor well. You know, like the things you do to your neighbor, they're not like, they don't have humanity. The actions you take against thy neighbor, and then this same person goes in a faraway land and talks about, you know, the things they have, the interest they have at heart for that person, for that land. How is your level of trust going to be for this person? That is the question I'm posing to you. How are we supposed to trust Israel when they are committing acts of inhumane acts against Palestine, when they are bombing another nation, and this nation has children, it has women, it has men who are suffering because of the said nation? That is the only question I'm going to pose for you. So
because it's quite difficult to imagine how a full-grown person can just wake up and decide that a missile will be sitting in an area, and mind you, this person, they of course they haven't forgotten that the place where you're going to drop that missile, there's a baby, there's a newborn baby who's there, there's someone's wife, there's someone's sister, there's someone's father, there's someone's son. You know?
I know things happen because of political issues, but someone once asked on our comment comment sections, why can't human beings choose to live peacefully? You know, why do they always choose war over? Those are the things that bring people behind. So we'll just leave you to ponder on that question, and if you have a comment, leave it on the comment section. We'd like to know your thoughts on this on this topic.
Yeah.